Good evening. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to We Are Better Together. I am Deneen Ward, your co-host, along with
Sierra Ward,
our other co-host, and
yes.
she's my daughter. So there you go. So for the month of May, because Mother's Day is next week, we are going to be kind of having topics on mother-daughter, mothers, whatever. So if you're a mother and a daughter and you feel like you guys have a great relationship, or even if you have an extreme relationship, but you guys want to repair it, send us a text, send us an email, and we might be able to have you on the show to talk about it. We would love to do that for the month of May. So, but today we got great topics. We got a couple topics that we want to talk about. We're going to talk about the mother-daughter bond and communication that heals and not hurts. So those are the two things we're going to talk about today. And we feel like it's some great information that's going to help you in your relationship, not just mother-daughter, but in any relationship interacting, specifically family. I mean, this is really about family because there's so many things that happens in our family, in our background, that leads us to who we are today. So today we're going to start with the mother-daughter bond. And it's a beautiful thing. It's complicated, it's emotional, and sometimes it's a lot, but it's also the most powerful relationship in our lives. We're talking about what shapes that bond, the invisible things we inherit, and how we can communicate in ways that heal instead of hurt.
Okay, yeah, let's get into it.
All right, let's go. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the invisible script, and Sierra's going to talk to us about that. What is the invisible script?
So the invisible script, basically, they're the unspoken rules that we inherit from our mothers. It could be other, like you said, other family members, intimate relationships, especially from your early childhood, about how to love, how to communicate, how to be strong, and how to handle conflict.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. So there are things that are happening and building in our in our characteristics from our mother, from our parents, from our family, that we don't even know it's happening, right? And so, the funny thing is we don't even realize we're passing the scripts down. We're just doing what we were taught or what we saw.
Yeah. So. And sometimes, thankfully, those scripts, they empower us, but some also limit us. And we don't even think to question how we're operating into adulthood often. So right. That's the invisible part of it.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you, Sierra, what's one script you didn't realize you inherited until you were grown?
One of the, I think, that shows up in my life often is because you're so strong and independent, I have like almost a toxic level of independence. Like, I don't want to ask for help. And not only don't I want to ask for help, if someone offers it, I'm hesitant to even take any help from people. And that's something I'm definitely working on because, like, getting help from others is good. But also another thing is like seeming vulnerable. That's something I think that definitely was passed down from you. We're not big on open vulnerability.
Right. That's true. Oh my gosh. And I guess the question for that is, did I inherit that from my mother?
Yes.
Like, where did it come from? Right. Mm-hmm. Where do these things come from? I would think that just from my generation, that girls were raised, to be independent, so that we wouldn't have to be dependent on men like our mothers before us. And so I think that's one of the things. And I think that, because my grandmother raised me, and coming from my grandmother, she wanted to make sure that, two things. She wanted to make sure that I could stand on my own and that I could, speak up. And she also wanted to make sure that I didn't put my information out there, my negative information out there, so people could use it against me. And that's where the
Yeah.
vulnerability thing comes from, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
A
but
hun-
you
a
said,
hundred, 100%. But yeah, like you said, there are good parts of those scripts where I'm like, it's like, okay, stand up for yourself. Make sure you, say what you need to say. Don't let people run over you. Don't be afraid to, be yourself. So I think there's positive aspects of those scripts as well.
and I think you
Even
were talking about,
for like Black women specifically. Like
yeah,
we were not trained to like, rely on others, make sure you can, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, sort of thinking, where other groups may not be as aggressively geared towards that until recently.
yeah, no, that's true. We were talking about this earlier. Remember we were talking about, I was talking to my girlfriend recently, and then Sierra was talking to someone recently, and we are talking about the same thing. We're talking about how we, just us, we don't care what people say. Like what
Yeah.
people say does not move us one way or the other. We are very firm on self-esteem, right?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
very firm on it. We believe in ourselves, and we think that we have the ability to do things. And so when somebody says, "Oh, that might not be a good thing," we say, "That's not my experience," or "I'll
Yeah.
consider it, but I'm going to make my own decision." And that's one of the things that we do. And you were talking about that. Wasn't you just talking about that yesterday? That somebody said the
Yeah,
same
it's
thing.
about it's about trusting your own thoughts. I think some people are trained from an early age to not trust what they're thinking or like the things they're feeling in their body, and that has a lot of negative outcomes. Where it's like if you can't trust your own thoughts or opinions, then you can get like negatively impacted by people who want to manipulate or even people who mean well and are just trying to ask follow-up questions. You start becoming more wavering in your thought process about who you are, what you're doing. So yeah, trusting your own thoughts is a big thing, I think.
Yeah, I think I was in a Bible study this week, and I was telling somebody, talking about that particular thing, and saying, if you go back to the Garden of Eden, right, and the enemy says, "Are you sure?"
Mm-hmm.
and questions what she's thinking,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Well, maybe not." And so that's one of the things that we don't allow people to do that. I mean, we really are strong on that
Mm-hmm.
no. And so I tell people when I talk to my friends, and they say, "Oh, you're so strong, blah 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 blah," and I go, "No, you need to trust yourself. You don't need
Yeah.
to trust me. You need to trust yourself." And
Mm-hmm.
so that, I think that's one of the good things that we have, is that we do have we
Yeah.
have we have the high self-esteem, right?
And part of that is also not necessarily always believing that you're going to make the right decision, but knowing that like even if the decision you make isn't the best, that you'll recover. And I think that's where it comes from with like trusting yourself. It's like, oh, okay, I'll get there. I'll get where I want it to be
Yeah.
eventually.
Well, yeah, and if I fall, I know I can get back up. But where
Yeah.
if you take somebody else's advice or whatever, you're not sure where you can go from there. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's good, Sierra. I like that. Those are some of the things, that's some of our background as far as what has gotten us to where we are as a
Mhm.
mother and daughter. But another big piece of mother and daughter bond is how we express love. In my generation, often we show love through action, providing, protecting, and doing. And
Mhm.
then through your generation,
Yes, it's like our focus is more about emotionality, words, affection, and being listened to and understood. Even though you're there for me, you're providing. It's like we may not feel the affection if it's not more just like outwardly stated, or we're not
right?
being, or feel like we're not being listened to. Um,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think like when we talk about love languages, so I believe that, when I'm giving you all the love that I have, and you're looking at me like I'm not getting it,
mhm.
right?
Yes.
Because I'm giving you what I have, but you're not receiving what you need,
Mhm.
right? So we
Yeah.
end up loving each other deeply, but speaking different dialects, really.
Yeah, and it's not just us. I've heard this from many of my friends. I mean, we have a very close relationship, so I feel comfortable like um asking for what I need from you, or if I'm missing something, like outwardly stating it. A lot of people do not feel that way with their mother, and that's where things get combative. An
Hmm.
example may be like maybe someone's mother isn't necessarily vocal about saying when they're proud of them, or they've done good. They more so are like they respond with critiques, or how things could have gotten been better, or how they could have done it quicker, versus just saying, oh, you did a good job. And a lot of people are missing that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that, and a lot of it does depend on like who I am. So if I'm a
Yeah.
person that wants to be critiqued all the time, I want somebody,
Mhm.
I want validation. I want validation. So then I'm going to be that person that's giving you that same thing that I want, right?
Mhm.
And, but we have to understand that everybody is different. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things that I've learned as a parent is that each each child is different.
Mhm.
They're different. So whatever I did for my oldest child might not necessarily work for the younger child. And I
Yes.
think that that's where parents get have the challenge, because I've heard this when I was growing up. I raised all my kids the same way. Everybody got the same love. And it's just like, that's the problem.
Yes.
Everybody didn't require the same exact love that you were giving. Some people
Yeah.
require something different. And so it's like some people need words, and some people need softness, and some people need action.
Yes.
Like I talk to some parents, and they talk about sparing the rod. They talk about spanking. Well,
Mhm.
guess what? Spanking would never work for my children. It just
No.
wasn't going to work, because my kids would be like, okay, go ahead and hit me,
Yeah.
but I ain't doing it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, and not to be controversial, but I'm like, that's how you lower someone's self-esteem immediately.
That's
Um,
exactly right. I have this issue. Here's an example, guys. I had an example. I had a girlfriend, and she had a daughter, and she used to, I mean, whip her daughter, and her daughter was kind of a early teen or whatever. And I told her, I said, what are you doing is treating your daughter that you're disrespecting her,
mhm.
because you're not listening to her. You're treating her like she's an animal, really.
Yes.
And later on, when the daughter got old enough, the daughter started hitting back. And it was
Mhm.
interesting because the mother couldn't believe it. Like, oh my gosh, she's hitting me back. And I'm like, well, you trained her. You taught her well. You
Yeah.
taught her well. So our kids are watching what we do. She said, thinking and sharing with respect, trusting with who I am in God, but realizing that I acknowledge that my adult daughter had a voice, had to accept her space. That's so real. Oh my gosh,
Right.
that's so real. Because one of the things, each season is different in their love language for each person. That is so good, because
Uh,
but we have the problem that most of us are having with our adult children is that we're treating our adult children like they're children, and they're adults, right?
yeah.
I even had somebody recently tell me, they're like, tell them to do this. And I said, you can't tell a grown person what to do.
Yeah.
And then they just looked at me like, what? What do you mean?
The thing
Uh,
is
you
this like, is that like a generational thing? Because I just feel like it used to be a way where it's like, okay, you're always a child, and someone's always the parent. And and there was never any shift in being like, oh, now that's an adult person, I treat them differently. It's always like, oh no, you're my child, I can treat you as you I did when you were a teen, to this day. Like, is that a
Yeah,
thing?
I think it is a generational thing, because we didn't know any better.
Yeah.
We didn't realize, we didn't realize that, that you have to grow. You have to grow with the different stages of people's lives. I mean, not just in the children, but in people in general. You can't
Mhm.
talk the same way to a 10-year-old that you can talk to a 16-year-old. They're different. And so it's going to require something different. So I think that that's the challenge with our adult children, is that we have to grow in the relationship as well, and we're expecting them to grow, we're expecting them to change. But no, we also play a role in that as well, because I've seen that. I think that as adults, we need, even as adolescents, I think one of the key factors in assisting your kids to be more productive adults and having a good relationship with them is raising your children not to do as you say, but raising your children to do things because it's the right thing to do. And when you
Yeah.
do that, they'll do it when you're not even around. But if you're just saying you're going to do it and you haven't explained to them why this is important, why they need to do it, that's where I think the hiccups come.
Or leading by example. I mean, that's one of the positive things about an invisible script. Like, if I see you being a person who wakes up on time, goes to work, comes home, washes the dishes, communicates clearly, isn't shady, then I will subconsciously absorb those things. And of course, I might not always do that, but you can say, oh, that's what I'm used to, that's what that's what I'm going to do going forward, versus someone who's doing the opposite of those things and then just telling someone to do it.
That's so true.
I mean, you hate it at work when your manager's like, oh, respond to the emails quickly, do this, do that, and then they don't do those things. You're like, wait, why is it fine for me? Why do I need to do it? And it's critical, but you don't do it and it's fine. So
yeah, you know what? Oh my gosh, there was an instance that I was just looking at, it was something on Facebook or something like that. But I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and she was talking about interacting with her daughter, and her daughter kept throwing things back at her. She kept, because she was telling her daughter some of the things that she needed to do, which were good things, but the daughter couldn't receive it because she saw her mother as somebody who didn't do those things. So basically, her daughter would go back and say, well, you didn't do that.
Yeah.
You didn't do that. And so, that's a complicated situation. But I think at the same time, we have to remind people that, we weren't always who we are today. And a lot of the things that we're talking about today, we didn't know back then. So when we know better, we got to do better.
Yes.
I think that helps out. I think that helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, on to the next thing. I think we gave an example of that. I think what we can talk about now is breaking generational habits. And we talked a little bit about that, right?
Yes. Like we were talking about the invisible script, and every generation thankfully gets a chance to do better and rewrite the script. Although oftentimes, that's where those generational curses pop up, where things like we can't slay that dragon. Our family, like, that just keeps happening in our family for some reason. But we always have the chance to change.
Right. And I think a lot of the times the reason why we can't rewrite the script is because people haven't been honest.
Yeah.
They haven't been transparent about what really happened.
That's true.
And so sometimes you're going to have to be more vulnerable and tell the truth. And when you start opening up about the past, it's going to help you to move forward. It really is. So I think it's important for that.
Yeah, true. If people are not being honest or communicating about things that have happened to them, you don't even notice that the script is happening again. You have no idea. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think so. I think when people are showing you something different, they're showing you something different than what they're telling you something different than what they really are doing. And so that's why a lot of times people say, oh, your mother's so wonderful, and they say, you don't know her. You don't know her, because she's saying all these wonderful things when she's out, but at home, she's a different person. So being honest about who you are and where you are makes all the difference. So
something similar to that is, like, if you're an older sibling, theoretically you're experiencing everything first, but you should be passing down things to your younger siblings so they don't have to deal with some of the roadblocks you did. But a lot of people aren't saying anything. So each sibling is going to college with the same lack of information each time, when each person should be having an easier time.
Yeah, I think so. No, that's good. I remember with you, I don't know what it was. I don't know what kind of conflict it was with your brother, and Sarah said, listen to her, or don't do that, just kind of warning him that these are some of the things that you shouldn't do if you want to get on mommy's good side.
Yes.
So yeah, so you're a good sister, Sierra. Good
I
sister.
try. Try.
So here's a question. It says, what's one pattern you constantly you're choosing to do differently? Like what are you going to do different that I do that you're like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I think you've done pretty well for yourself, but maybe I would say the vulnerability piece. Like I'm
Mhm.
trying to openly discuss how I'm feeling and making sure other people around me feel like, I mean, we've always been that way. Like we're people where people come to us with their problems. They want to discuss how they're feeling to us. So I feel like we need to make sure that we feel just as open to discuss how we're feeling, and really just connecting to our own emotions so we can discuss it with others. So the
Yeah.
vulnerability is something I'm trying to work on because it really takes a burden off your chest, and so you can
Mhm.
focus on other things.
We had a comment. I wanted to read that. She said, I think it's a lack of growth on the part of that parent. Absolutely. However, young adults have to make decisions and learn from a positive environment. Others in your community display positive experiences. That's so
That's true.
true. I mean, it takes a village.
Yes.
It takes a village. But unfortunately, many times the parents who are immature,
Yeah.
they create a bubble for their children. They don't let their kids get to other people because they don't want everybody to know that they're deficient.
Yes.
So
Yes.
they're so they're so they're kind of hiding their bad behavior. Like, and that's one of those things where we grew up. It's like anything that happens in this house stays in this house. That goes back to the transparency. That goes back to being honest about what's happening. And
Yeah.
then it goes back to when you are honest as a parent, your kids are more likely to be honest. Like the kind of thing is lying. When you're doing your little white lies, guess what your kids are gonna end up doing?
Yeah.
Same thing. Even as as small as tell them I'm not home,
Mm-hmm.
or or the other thing is lying when you don't want to do something instead of just saying I'm not going to do that. I love this example right here. I have this wonderful example from my daughter back when she was younger, and one of the girls from church called and said, "Hey, Sierra, you want to go bowling?" You remember that, Sierra? You want to go bowling? Now I'm on the phone. You want to go bowling? And Sierra says, I'm looking at TV. And I said, you can't say that. She said, yeah, that's what I'm doing. That daughter taught me something that day. She taught me, she didn't let me lie. She didn't let me. I love that. She's like, that's what I'm doing. So I think we have to remember that what we are teaching our children. Are we teaching them honesty? Are we
Yeah.
teaching them transparency? Right? Are we teaching them that, sometimes you're going to have to say things that people are not going to be happy about?
Mm-hmm.
Tough conversations. One thing that I'm doing differently as an adult is now this is I'm doing differently with my daughter than what was done with me. Is I've always been like this strong person as a young person. I didn't need a lot of attention. And I always kind of did well. I just didn't need a lot of supervision, all those things. And so what I tried to do, and I didn't do it well, but I did do a little better than the generation before me, was to make sure that I gave my daughter attention, even though, and I came up with this little phrase that I say all the time. Just because you don't need it does not mean you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
So just because you don't need the attention does not mean you don't deserve the attention. And I really try hard to make sure that my daughter got extra attention, even though she didn't require it. She was very independent. She was she excelled in like everything she did. She didn't really need me to do all those things, but I remember feeling like I wasn't considered because I didn't need anything. And so
Yeah.
that was one of the things that I tried to do differently with my daughter.
Oh yeah.
Look at
And I think you did that.
I did a little better. I did a little better.
That's what this is all about. It's like incremental changes.
Yeah, really. We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about progress. We're not
Yes.
talking about perfection. We're talking about progress. That's life, right?
Yes.
making
Acknowledging it,
progress.
acknowledging it, and making an effort is huge.
Yes, showing
Yeah,
up, right?
showing.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess the moving on, we'll say, what do I know? It said, what does mothers wish daughters knew, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like and maybe specifically myself, one thing we went through was making sure that when I'm venting to you, I'm not looking for just a like a
A
practical
solution, a
solution.
solution.
Yes. Yes. And people have this problem in relationships as well, like women and men. Like women, they'll come home, they're complaining about something, and the man is like, "Oh, well, just like send them an email. Oh, just block them. Oh, don't hang out with them." It's like, no, I just want to be heard and understood and get how I'm feeling out, opposed to just looking for a solution. And I think that's very common with daughters and mothers, especially like Black women, immigrant families, things like that, where women had to be like so focused on like achieving and the goals and being productive. So I think that's the major thing that I would say daughters care about. It's our emotional needs,
Mm-hmm.
on top of all the laundry list of stuff that mothers have to do, which is unbelievable.
I knew April was going to say that. April, I knew he was going to say good. Like that's one of the things, one of the areas that I've grown in. I've grown in trying to be more of a listener, and as opposed to being a fixer. Because people don't want to be fixed. People just want to be heard. And I didn't realize that. I thought if somebody was telling me something, because it goes back to what my history is and my upbringing. My history and my upbringing says, don't bring it to me unless you want me to, unless you want me to do something. Right. And so when people bring things to me, I assume they want me to do something. Why are you telling me? That's kind of how it happens. But I've learned that, people just want to be heard. People just want to talk. People just want your ear. And they want your ear because they feel like it's a safe space. And so if somebody's coming to you with information or problems or whatever, you just listen.
Yeah.
And let them know that, acknowledge that you heard them.
And I used to do the same things. I mean, I didn't even realize that I needed someone to just listen for years. You know what I mean? So I would do the same thing with people. Like people would tell me something, I'm giving them a rational answer to it. Versus when I realized, oh, actually, I would appreciate someone who would just like listen and not really give me constructive feedback and just like listen to me. I started doing that with other people, and it was really helpful. I mean, people just, they get it out, and sometimes they come to the conclusion or the solution you were going to offer them themselves.
Yeah, giving them a chance. I would have that issue matter of fact, my son had that. I had the issue at work. My son had that issue at school. When my son was about 5 years old, he raised his hand for every question because he had the answer. And so finally I came to the classroom and I saw he kept, oh, I got it. And finally I was like, you don't have to always give the answer. And then I learned the same thing for me in personal relationships and at work. And what I learned about the personal relationship is the truth don't always need to be told by me.
Yes.
And then at work, I learned the same thing. I would be writing down notes while people are talking. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to tell them, what's going to be next. And then I realized if you would just hang in there, they might say exactly what you wanted to say anyway. Give somebody else a chance. You don't have to show that, you're the smarty pants in the group. And that's what I was telling. That's how, for my son, I'm sure that came from me. Like, I know the answer. Show, trying to show off, you know everything. But so I've grown. I might not be perfect, but I've grown in that area too. And my son has as well. He realized, I mean, maybe to a fault now, because he just kind of chill, like, okay, let them
that's too laid back.
Yeah, let them answer.
Yeah.
But but one thing that I think mothers want their kids to know, I think mothers want their kids to know and understand the pressure that they carry. And not by telling them how many bills you have, not telling them, how frustrated you are, not by that, but they want you to want the kids to understand that your life and your level of responsibility is very different from theirs. And so this is why. So you just talk about, they want to know, they have expectations. There are expectations for a parent that should not be on children. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's important for parents to not place their children in adult responsibilities. I think that's important because a lot of times, and that's why you have like a lot of young people out there in the streets. You'll have some young boys going out there in the streets doing some things that they should not be doing because they feel responsible for helping their family to survive.
Yes.
But they wouldn't be doing that if they didn't know, and they don't have to know, because I tell everybody this, and this is big for me. Mm-hmm. I had no idea that we was lower income until I was like married. I did not know. And what I learned is that people say, well, I grew up poor. If you knew you grew up poor, you probably weren't poor. Because you don't know, because everything around you is the same. And so you assume that that's what we are. You don't think like, oh yeah, no, everybody's the same. So as a parent, I think it's important for us to shield our children to some degree. Mm-hmm. We need to make sure that we're protecting them from things. And one of the ways that I did it, which, people can agree or not agree, is I didn't want my kids to get desensitized about violence and crime. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is I didn't want my kids playing violent games. I didn't want them to be watching grown-up TV shows, because I didn't want, my teenager to think that it was okay to be watching sex and all those kind of things. I didn't want that. Yeah. And so I think it's important for us to make sure that we do put some boundaries on our children. Yes. The other thing that as a parent, I would like, we want our kids to know that we make a lot of sacrifices for them. Yes. Right. Yeah. And that a lot of times we're coming from our fears. We're coming from a place of our fears, some of the things that we've seen. So we're trying to protect our kids.
Yeah. And a lot of those things are hidden. Like when you're like a really good parent, we don't see any of the stressors you're under. We just assume that you're like, superhuman. Adults know what to do, and it's all very clear and, not difficult for you to deal with. So we just feel like we're being like, if we see any inkling of it, we're like, why are they nagging me? Why do they want me to take the meat out of the freezer before they come home? Like, why can't they just do it? They're Wonder Woman. They can just do it. So we don't get that. We don't get it.
It takes a little while. It does take a while. I think, that's a part of the growth process as well. Because as you grow, then you start understanding some of the things, because you start encountering things, specifically when you get out into the workforce.
Yes.
You start saying, oh, that's what that was about, right?
There's a thing like where kids are like, man, I can't believe I used to call my mom while she was at her office to like just say nonsense. It's like, why was I calling and bothering you at work? I can't imagine like me right now, like a 3-year-old or like a 2-year-old, someone who can make a phone call. Obviously, I don't know much about children. Would calling me at my office for no reason. Just like, what are we doing? It's
but you wouldn't know anything about that until you get a job, right?
No, and I say this, it's like you don't realize that adults aren't superhuman, or specifically your parent. And like, it really didn't hit for me until I became the age that you had me. And I realized it's like, wow, she was this age with a baby and a husband and going to work. I'm like, I can't believe that. I don't know how. And my brain is, the same level of function as yours would have been.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
Right. Yeah. She said, I'm going to see what she said. She said, what when you never feel equal to your siblings because of what your mother made you feel? Where's your bachelor's, master's degree? She makes you feel like nothing. That's so good. Oh my God. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a good little topic that we can talk about. We'll talk about it really briefly, but that's another whole thing we can talk about sibling comparison.
Mm-hmm.
because, and we're dealing with it right now because my son just graduated and got his master's. My daughter, she has her master's and she's doing what she's doing. And so my son has this feeling that he needs to do as well as my daughter's doing, even though he's like 7 years behind her.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly ensuring. But I think that once again, I think somebody said this earlier, that is a lack of maturity from your parent. It's a lack of maturity because it goes back to what I said before. First of all, each child has their own path that they have to lead, right?
Mm-hmm.
And each child needs different things in order to be able to do their maximum, or do the most that they're going to do. And I think that when parents are immature, I think it's a disservice to their children. And that's why it's important for us to make sure that we try to build ourselves up before we start doing the whole parenting thing. I mean, I know people don't want to hear that, but it's an important part of being a parent is trying to equip yourself the best you can. Are you going to be perfect? No, you're not. But the more you do and put into yourself, the better you are going to be able to help your children to feel like they belong, feel like they're worthy, feel like they're enough. I think
Yeah.
that it goes back to what I said before, Veronica. It's about self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to clarify the difference between self-esteem and confidence, because I think people get those two things confused. So self-esteem, and I'll just give you like even like the Webster version of it. Self-esteem is how we value and perceive ourselves based on our opinions and beliefs about ourselves. So it's how you feel about yourself, right? When you have high self-esteem, you feel good about yourself. And a lot of that has to do with how your parents relate to you, right? What they say to you about yourself.
Yeah.
And there was this a little demonstration of this little girl. Somebody came to the door, and this little girl came to the door with the parent, and the person was at the door, and the little girl was standing like right behind the parent, and the person said somebody said something, and the mother said, "Oh, that's Jennifer. She's a acrobat. Jennifer takes 2 flips back." Right? It was just an example of what the words, when we say our kids are certain things, they actually wrote they fall into those things. So words do words hurt,
Yeah.
right? And words shape. They
Mm-hmm.
really. So if you're calling your kids, you can't joke. You can't joke about with negative things about your children. I
Yes.
remember my son, when I first had my son, that boy cried. And I was like, oh, he's such an angel. Woo, he's such an angel. I literally was calling it out. Talk about faith. I kept calling it out, calling it out, calling out. Today, my son's like, I mean, he's all of that I was speaking over him. So it's really important as a parent to speak life into
And
your children.
self-esteem, it's really difficult to build good self-esteem after childhood. So those that foundation is set. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's critical that you prioritize like building good self-esteem in children.
I think,
100%.
yeah. I mean, we're not talking about adolescent. We're talking about, 1 year olds. We're talking
Yes.
about 1 year olds. The years 1 through 5, that is
Yeah.
when those things are built. And
Yeah.
so unfortunately, after that, it's pretty much set. And now you're going to have to tackle it yourself.
Yeah. And you can be really high, you can be really confident in skills and being able to do tasks and whatnot, but have very low self-esteem. And we see a lot of people in the world who are like that.
Yeah, I think a good example, given that the movie that's out right now is the Michael Jackson movie.
Yes, yes. He clearly had cripplingly low self-esteem from this treatment from his father, probably other family members, but then really high confidence in like music, dancing. And we saw that throughout his life, how he was changing his appearance, never felt good enough, things like that. When meanwhile
Mhm.
he's like the most popular singer of all time, with untold millions, but he never truly felt like he was good enough. So just imagine someone who has low self-esteem and then they just work an average 9 to 5. Like there's no There's no fixing that. It's really
It really isn't, because self-esteem comes from confidence from within. And so basically what I think we're gonna give you a couple things that you can do to help. We'll do that at the end. We'll have like a little checklist on some of the things that you can do that can help your self-esteem, because the self-esteem can lead to more confidence. It really can. Um,
Mhm.
you can have confidence and not have high self-esteem. So what we're going to do is shift right now. We're actually running out a little bit of time, Sierra, but I think we can get through this.
Yeah, I think
Let's
so.
talk about the communication that heals and not hurts. I think that that's what you guys want to talk about today. You want to hear about that today. And so let me just tell you that when we talk about the mother and daughter communicating and interacting, it's tender, it's tense, it's transformative, and all of that can be in like one conversation, right?
Yes, yes. And misunderstandings happen um, because we're not just talking to each other. We're talking to our past selves, things that have happened to us. You see that whenever you're talking to people, you'll be like, you'll bring something up and it triggers them, and you're like, wait, why is me bringing up a potato triggering? But you don't know what happened to them with that potato. So
Exactly.
that's what's going on, especially with like intimate relationships, like a mother and daughter.
No, true, true, true. I think one of the things that I have like an issue with is when people talk about finances. Like I don't
Mhm.
talk about finances with anybody. I just
Yeah.
don't do that. So when people are talking about how much they paid for this and money and things like that, it really triggers me, because I feel like, why are you doing that? I mean, because I was raised in a way that those are personal things and those are not things that you need to put out there. So I get so annoyed by it. I go, why are they telling me how much they paid for such and such, right?
Hmm.
Like, what does that have to do with me? But
Yeah.
but what's happening is they were raised in a different way, that money gives them self-worth. And so
Yes.
that's why they're talking about it. Now for me, it's different. I had a relationship uh, a while back, and when I found out, which I mean, it's probably a real thing, that this particular person, that money was they felt their value was money, and so everything they did, they spent a lot of money. They talked about money and all those things, and it wouldn't wow me,
Yes.
because I'm not a person that values money. And that frustrated them, because they couldn't understand, like, how do you not think that this is wonderful? And I thought, no,
Mhm.
I kind of value, like, somebody being kind and somebody treating you right. Those are the things that I value. So it's real important for you to know who you're dealing with, because
Yeah.
otherwise, people are going to be frustrated,
And
right?
the mother daughter issues, I think, specifically come up during the evolution phase between, like, say your daughter's a teen and you interact and you're like, okay, this is what I've taught them and this is how they think and this is how they operate. And then let's say they go to college, and then that is transform them through all these other experiences, and they come back, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're speaking to them the same way you did before, even if it's a positive way of speaking.
Right.
And it may be like uncomfortable, and you might butt heads because they're like, oh no, this is what I've learned and this is what I need now, and you're still trying to give them what they previously needed. So I,
Oh,
I
that's
think that's
good.
where the misunderstandings happen, or even like, I mean, like puberty. When they're a child, they hit puberty, they think they know everything. uh,
Mm-hmm.
or even, okay, now your daughter has a family, she's a mother, you're a mother, you're trying to tell them how to be a mother. It's in those evolutionary phases where most misunderstandings happen, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're talking about, we're talking to our upbringings. I'm talking to you from my fears and my hopes. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm coming from, and then you're coming from
Yeah, from like
your
my
shape.
expectations, my inner child. I mean, and you're doing that to a certain extent too. I mean, what your mother gave you or didn't give you, there's all these unsaid expectations that like we said, I think it's, being clear and trying to just like examine what you're thinking, communicating it clearly is the best way to avoid misunderstandings or at least clear them up.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that we were talking about before about, parents maturing, because
Mm,
what happens is a lot of times, and I say this all the time, they're stuck.
yeah.
Parents, people in general, parents are stuck. They're stuck in their trauma. They're stuck maybe in the glory days. So if you have a parent that, like she was talking about earlier, if you have a parent that, let's say your oldest sibling got all these degrees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just only natural for her to expect the next people to have that or not. And so what happens is it depends on how society receives it. So if society thinks that this is a big deal, then a lot of times the mom, she's going to hold on to that because that makes her feel better. That makes
Mm-hmm.
her feel like she was a good parent because that
Yeah.
daughter or son has achieved these things. So she's living vicariously through her child, right? And so what happens is she neglects the other ones because they haven't given her anything that she believes is makes her look like a good parent. And
Yeah.
so she stay away from that. So, and if you have children that are not doing what you think they should be doing, you might not talk about those kids as much,
Mm-hmm.
but does that mean you don't love them? No, it doesn't. It just means that you haven't worked through that either. I
Yeah.
mean, you really just need to be able to be honest and be transparent about, what's really happening.
Yeah, and stuff like that, it seems to be a lot like when you are a parent and you give your kids a easier life than you had, you don't understand why they're not achieving these like social markers of like, success that you're
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I got a degree and I had to work 3 jobs and my mother, she didn't care and I had to fight and do all this stuff and then you won't get your bachelor's when I sent you to private school and drove you to soccer practice every day. So there's a misunderstanding. It may seem like, oh man, are they just being lazy? Why aren't they doing this, that, and the third? So I think there's confusion there. That's a big one. People are like, oh, you have it so much. I give you the life I wish I would have had, and you're not doing, the stuff you're supposed to do.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and I think that the other piece of that is you gave me the life that I wish I had, and
mm-hmm.
I'm not that person. I'm not you, right?
Yes.
So I don't
Mm-hmm.
want the life that you had, and I don't benefit with the things that you would have benefited from. So
Yeah.
that goes back
Yeah.
to again, understanding, the individual needs of your children
Mm-hmm.
because they need different things, and um, we have to really pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I guess we'll move on to the next thing about tone versus intention.
Yes.
That's pretty
Yeah.
simple.
Like so intention is what you meant and tone is what the person felt when you said it.
Right.
Those are two big things. I mean, it's just like how you could say something very serious, but if your tone is funny, people laugh. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
that's definitely a huge part of communicating and why a lot of misunderstandings can happen. I know that people people feel like I'm being sarcastic all the time. People do not think I'm saying something serious at all. So that could 100% lead to people thinking that like I'm making a joke about them when I'm not, or I'm being insincere. So that's definitely something I struggle with.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, mother and daughter, or that you often hear criticism, where we really just meant concern. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not criticizing you. I'm just concerned about you. Like, I'm telling you because I want you to be better, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just kind of have to really, once again, you need to know your child. I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that enough. And then how to have hard conversations, right?
Yes. Yeah, especially like how do you have hard conversations without having people shut down? A lot
Mhm.
of times people hear like one word or a harsh tone and immediately they tune out, opposed to trying to just understand where someone's coming from, what they mean, what their goal of even saying it is. I mean, there's a lot of situations where people are being harsh just to be harsh, So I
Mm.
understand, but it's just not an effective way of communicating, and it's going to lead to so many more problems.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, shutting down. I mean, that. I mean, people. That's a lot of people's go-to. Just like I'm not saying anything, but I
Yeah.
think that, when you have a conversation, when you're having a tough conversation, you really start with curiosity, not accusation. You say
Hmm.
something like "I feel," or instead of saying "you always." So
Hmm.
not accusing people. Just tell them how it's making you feel. Something like, I. It makes me feel bad when you say, whatever. Just
Hmm.
tell them how it makes you feel. Not Don't deal with what's happening with them. Deal with what's happening with you. And
Yeah.
I think that helps. And then if
Hmm.
it gets too heated, because I mean, there's sometimes, like I had a conversation with my mom last week, and I said, you know what, I'm going to stop this conversation right now,
Hmm.
and we're gonna talk. We can talk another time, but right now, I just don't. I don't feel like we're being productive. And
Yes.
it's okay to pause. Pausing a heated discussion is not disrespect.
Hmm.
Not
Yes.
so.
Yes. Yeah, I used to be a person who like shuts down, right? And to a certain extent that works as long as it's with you're doing that to someone that doesn't matter to you at all. Like someone
Right.
you never have to speak to again, or someone in like, oh yeah, like a couple days or weeks you never have to speak to them again. But in these like intimate relationships or people you care about, like shutting down is probably one of the worst things you can do. And like you said, it's better to just be like, okay, let's pause and reconvene,
Yeah.
opposed
Exactly.
to shutting down or getting more angry.
Yeah. I mean, I think because you want to be productive, and if you feel
Hmm.
like you just like, and then sometimes you might have to say, can we just agree to disagree
Yes.
and move
Clear
on?
pocket. Let's call it a day.
Yeah. Can we just, what? Yeah. We're good. We're
Yeah. Do
good.
we even really care? Yeah. Evaluate how much do you really care about this win right now?
Yes.
Like, is it going to positively impact your life? Is it going to, stop the sun from coming up tomorrow? Like, these are questions you got to ask yourself. And I know I'm certainly guilty of that because I'll hold on this. I'll like strangle it. Like, no, you have to understand. I'm going to make sure you understand. You're not understanding. But at a certain
Right.
point, it's like it's doing more harm than good.
Yeah, I think one of the other things you do when you're having hard discussions is name the goal of the conversation. So I want us to
Mhm.
understand each other. I want us to, get to a better place. I want us to, just say what you want to happen. You need to know. You need to have a goal. Are we just going to be yapping the whole time? Or are we just going to keep going back and forth? What do we want to get out of this conversation? We have to start being more strategic about our conversations, and that's
Yes.
how we're going to get to better solutions.
Hmm.
And so, what happens after you have a conflict? To repair after a conflict, right? And
Yes.
repair is more important than perfection. Once again, right? Talking about
Yes.
progress, not perfection,
Yeah,
right?
like a simple like I didn't handle that well can reopen the door and like, give some opportunity for some further understanding and actually communicating opposed to just getting your, saying what you had to say and convincing someone. And like, stating the goal I think is really helpful because if you sit there and you state the goal and your whole goal is just for them to say that you're right, you should probably reevaluate while you're having the conversation.
Exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
because I mean, you need a lot of times. Now, here you go. I mean, a lot of times you said, he said, "Oh yeah, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
We appreciate that." She said, "Enjoying your channel. Peace. Yay. Thank you." We do appreciate you guys tuning in today. But just remember, you don't have to agree to reconnect. You
Mhm.
just have to acknowledge. So you don't have to agree. We can agree to disagree. We can do that. So we want to, before we go, we have a couple more minutes, and we have I think Sierra's going to give us
Yeah,
that.
we have like a quick checklist, like some questions you can ask that could like rephrase the conversation and really get to the meat of what you're saying to avoid some miscommunication or to get some clarity. Like you can ask like, for yourself, you can say, "What am I feeling?" If you're getting elevated, you're like, "Why is that?" what do I need? What do I need from this conversation? What do I need this person to give me that's going to make me feel better? What is the story I'm telling myself? Because we're all doing that. We're all creating narratives, making assumptions about what people are thinking and feeling and why they said this to you or why they're doing this to you. And it's like, what story are you telling? And then what outcome do you want from the conversation? And then how do you say what you're thinking with clarity and compassion, opposed to being, hostile or like, and a lot of that is just like comes from just not making assumptions,
Right.
because really we're just all making all these assumptions. And if you assume negative and someone said something to you to be like toxic or like self-serving, then you're not going to go into a conversation with like clarity or actually looking to understand.
No, that's so good. I mean, you need to know your source, because give people grace. You should
Mm-hmm.
always assume that people are coming from a place of love.
Yes,
They're
when they
coming,
give you when they've given you no reason to assume the other.
right, right. Well, I mean, that's where you start. You start
Yeah.
with people coming from a place of love, right? And if
Mm-hmm.
you feel like they're doing something different, then you have to address it. You have to say, I feel like this. Just tell them how you
Mm-hmm.
feel. So, I mean, we're going to be we're closing out, and I just wanted to just tell you guys that the mother-daughter bond is layered. So it's not, it's not linear. It's emotional, and it's deep. Really, there's just so many different facets of it, and it's shaped by what we inherited, what we learned, and what we choose to change. Just like Sierra said before, we can rewrite the script, right? And communication, real compassion communication, is how we'll heal the parts that hurt, right? So I just thank you guys for joining us today. I thank you guys for doing the work that you guys do and helping grow. And I hope you guys are going to be back with us for the next 3 weeks. It's all going to be about honoring mother. This is a month of mothers. And next month, we're going to be honoring fathers. So we're going to talk about some men topics. So it's
Yes.
going to be really nice. So just until next time, remember, we are
Better
better
together.
together, right? So okay, we have 3 more minutes. So I just want to give a shout out to our other shows. We have a show on Monday, 8 p.m. We got our health and fitness show. We have a Corner Truth shows on Monday, right? And then health and fitness is on Tuesday. Wednesday, we have our Legends from the Past show, which we have Francine Dix is going to be on there on Wednesday. Thursday, we have our sports talk with our little Gen Z boys, and I think they have another host coming in with them on Thursday. And then Sunday, we'll be back with We Are Better Together. So thank you guys. See you guys next week. We're better together.